Hello, welcome to another video. My name is Kim the Introvert, and in today's video, we're going to talk about the time that I actually thought that I was going to die. Like, I really thought I was about to die, and in a horrible way too. So if you're interested in this story, please continue to watch. So this story actually takes place a really long time ago. I would say at this point, maybe a decade ago, maybe a little over that. And it was in the summer. I was working in fashion retail at one of my jobs because I had many. I was closing that night. I worked in a store at the mall, and the mall closed at 9 o'clock. And basically at 9 o'clock, we close our doors and we start cleaning the store, folding everything, and we were usually out by 9:30. 10 o'clock is when 10 o'clock at the latest when we were usually out. Sometimes later, depending on the season, usually the holiday season, it would be a little bit longer. But anyway, it was a typical summer day. I was probably going to be out no later than 10 o'clock that day. Well, the region that I was working in at the time does have thunderstorms, as most regions do, but it also has tornadoes. So you can kind of see where this video is going. So on this night that I was closing, it started getting a little slow in around the last hour before we were about to close. It depended on what time of the year. Sometimes it would slow down significantly, and sometimes it would stay a steady pace all the way up until we closed our doors. But this day in the summer, in that last hour, so like 7:30, 8 o'clock time, the mall started getting really empty and we didn't have very many customers. So at 9 o'clock, we just closed our doors because we didn't have any customers in the store. It was very easy to close that night. And we started doing our typical duties of fixing the hangers, folding the clothes, cleaning up the store, making sure it looked nice, closing the registers, things like that. But we didn't get to finish. So in the middle of us cleaning up the store, the manager stops us and says,
"Hey guys, there's a storm coming. Just go home, get out. Don't worry about finishing your duties. Whatever you're doing, just leave it. We'll take care of it tomorrow. But get out of here."
So that's what we do. We go to the back, get our stuff, and then we go to our cars. In the distance, the lightning had started and it was windy outside. And so I got in my car and I started driving back to where I lived. Now, even taking the expressway, it was still going to take about 30 minutes for me to get back home just because of the distance between where I lived and where I worked. It's already dark outside because even though it's the summer, it's still after 9 o'clock. Sun's already set, but there's a huge storm coming. So I make my way home, I start driving, and this is where things started getting uncomfortable while I was driving. So mistakes were made, things that I will not do now with the wisdom that I have now. So start driving home, and the way that I wouldn't take the main road because there were so many traffic lights, and usually there was way more traffic on the main road. So I would take a back road to cut the time that it would take for me to get to and from where I worked, where I lived, and back and forth, vice versa. I took my route, started driving, and I hit the first light on that back road. For clarification, I didn't actually run into the light with my car. What happened was I came up on that light and had to stop. At that first light, that storm started kicking up so hard. It had already begun, but it was moving so fast that I realized at that first light that this isn't even the worst that it's gonna be, because I don't even think it had started raining yet. It was just wind, high wind, lightning, and thunder. At that first light, the lights are just swinging in the wind. Okay, to the point where I was just like, are they going to fall? The trees are doing back bends. They are bending to the wind, not just a little breeze, they are just bending over. The lightning is going off like paparazzi. It was a lot. Any type of leaves or trash or whatever was loose was blowing past my car. My car was rocking back and forth. It was not fun. I was very nervous and I just wanted that light to hurry up and turn green. I know I could have easily just driven through it because there was no one at the light. There was a storm coming, a big storm coming. So there was no one there. I could have driven through it. It might have been red light, photo enforced. I don't know, but I could have just gone through it. But I was so stricken with fear of getting in trouble and also scared of the storm. I just couldn't make a decision. So I waited for the light to turn green and then I started driving. And while I'm driving, it's getting darker and darker because what I didn't explain, on this back road at night, it cut through a more residential area where literally to my right, I could see the main road, which was lined by businesses and some like open fields, but it was a main road, so it had the proper lighting. The road I was taking had no lighting. All I had was the lightning to light my way and my car headlights. I'm trying to stay calm. As I'm driving, a lightning bolt decides to hit a power line up ahead of me. And that's when I was like, okay, this isn't good. Now I'm really scared. First I was nervous, now I'm scared because the wind is getting stronger. When you're in a storm and the wind is blowing, usually you can't really feel the wind as you drive. Like, you can feel it strong, so you have to steer a little bit stiffer and you have to make sure that you have full control of the car. The car is rocking as I'm driving. I keep driving and I'm nervous, and to my right there is a parking lot with a bunch of businesses obviously closed. And I turn into the parking lot and there's actually a bunch of cars that have done the same because it just wasn't safe to drive anymore. So we're all in the parking lot, and I remember I parked in the shopping area. It was like a strip mall. There was a Dunkin' Donuts. And in that Dunkin' Donuts were the workers. They were closed, but the workers were literally standing at the window, because if you're familiar with Dunkin' Donuts, you know the whole storefront is all glass. They're standing at the window. The lights are off because there's no power now. There's no power. The power has gone out, so it's just dark everywhere. They're standing at the door just looking at us in our cars as the trees are bending backwards. The rain has started, so it is just coming down hard, just like someone's taking a giant bucket of water and just dumping it. And the lightning is just going off like crazy. The thunder is going wild. It's bad outside. Whatever is loose is flying past, stuff is blowing past. It's bad. I'm in my car. My car is rocking back and forth. I'm young and by myself, and I'm scared because I got a tornado warning on my phone. Anytime I've ever gotten a tornado warning before, I've always been typically indoors. There's a couple of times in the past where I wasn't indoors, but usually I'm indoors. I just take cover. But I'm in my car and I'm nowhere near home, and it's late at night. Where am I supposed to go? So I just start calling my boyfriend and my dad, and I'm calling them. I'm ping-ponging back and forth with calling them because every time they pick up, I can get like a sentence or two out before the line goes dead. So now I'm frustrated and terrified because I can't get them on the phone. And also I realized in that moment that I'm terrified of dying alone because I thought that this was it. My car is rocking back and forth. There's no power. I have nowhere to go. I'm so far away from home. I just need to hear someone's familiar voice before I go out. I'm trying to call either one of them, and this time I literally can't get through. Like, the phone won't answer. And I know I've caused my boyfriend and my dad to be terrified because when I first started calling them, I sounded normal but scared. And so I just tried to tell them, but then when it would hang up and I'll call them back, the more I had to keep calling them back, I'm yelling now. So they would pick up the phone and I'm just yelling into the phone as they answer, and then it goes dead again. So I'm probably scaring them and making it so much worse on their end. I'm frustrated and terrified, and I'm also looking all around myself because I'm looking for the funnel. I'm just looking for the tornado to just come and pick me up. And it's so dark outside, you can't see anything. The only time I can see something is when the lightning goes off. I'm looking everywhere trying to find the funnel to see it coming because I just didn't want to unexpectedly be swept up. And this whole time I'm looking at the people in Dunkin' Donuts just looking at us, and I'm like, they're gonna just let us die? Like, that's what they're going to let us die. That's what they're going to do. Realizing my mortality in that moment, it was not fun at all. It was just too much going on. I realized my worst fear and all that, thinking that I was going to die by myself. I can't get a hold of anybody. It was terrifying. I'm looking at everybody else in their cars and they're looking around panicked. It was horrible. It was horrifying. Eventually, the storm dies down. The wind calms. The lightning is less frequent. The thunder stops being so boisterous. And the rain slows. And when that calms down, I start to feel a little bit better. Not 100%, because you don't just stop being afraid when you thought you were going to die. It doesn't just go away. It's a slow burn. It took some time, so I sat there in that parking lot, and then I finally was able to get through to my dad, and I called him and told him what was happening, and he's like,
"Are you okay? I didn't know what was going on. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. I couldn't get through to you."
And I just told him what happened, and he said,
"Okay, we'll just make your way home. You're gonna be fine. You need me to stay on the phone with you?"
When I just told him I was gonna be fine, and I called my boyfriend back and explained to him what happened, and he just wanted to make sure that I was okay. He was concerned because the last time he heard from me was me yelling in the phone, and then it just went dead. Can you imagine being on the other end of that? Your loved one is calling you and they sound panicked, and the line keeps going dead, and the last thing you hear from them is them yelling and screaming and crying, and the line just goes dead. I feel bad for putting them through that. I am so sorry, but I was terrified. I really thought that I was going to die. That was terrifying. I never want to look death in the face like that ever again. It's horrible. So I continue on my way home, and in the distance, the lightning is still going off. It's still kind of raining a little bit, and I can see where the storm had passed over. There were definitely tree limbs down. The power was still out. I could see it was dark as I was driving, and I was on the expressway. It was dark. It was just weird because it just felt like I was driving home after some crazy disaster happened. I get off at my exit, make my way through the regular streets that I had to get through to get back home. I drive around the curved road in my neighborhood, and then I get to the light, make a left, and wouldn't you know, nothing happened. Nothing happened. There was no storm there. I wasn't that far away. Storms are weird. So my dad was confused because he didn't understand why I was screaming in the phone, because nothing was happening back home. There was no rain, there was no lightning, there was no wind, there was no thunder. Nothing happened. The storm had traveled in a different path, and it just so happened that where I was working, it hit that area, but it went nowhere near where I lived at all. And like I said, I was about 40 minutes away. It was about 40 minutes. It's somewhere between 30 to 35 minutes, but I just say 40 because I know there was traffic. We weren't that far away. So the fact that the storm just never went over there, and I'm just screaming into the phone because I'm panicked about this storm that apparently doesn't exist where my dad is. So I'm like, the storm, and he's like,
"What storm?"
So it just, man, in hindsight, I can see the comedy of it. But being in that moment, I was so scared. I learned that it wasn't a tornado, it was I'm going to say it in the American accent, a derecho, but in Spanish, a derecho. Derecho in Spanish means straight. I had never heard of this type of storm before. So basically, or a tornado or tornado is a spinning funnel of wind, but a derecho, which means straight, is just wind going straight, just like a powerful blast of wind just going straight. So it's literally I guess the opposite of a tornado. I had never heard of it until I lived through it, got to the other end of it, and then learned that it's called a derecho. There are some things that I would rather learn about by reading about them. Okay? I don't need to learn every lesson by living through the consequences of them. Thank God. Okay, thank God I lived through it. Obviously, it could have been worse. I know it's derecho, so that means the wind was going straight, but a tree could have fallen on me. A power line could have gone down on my car. Because the wind was so strong, something could have blown into the road and into the path that I was driving, caused me to swerve, and I could have gotten into an accident. Thank you, universe, for teaching me a lesson, but also, please, can you not teach me that way? no, there are some things I just don't need to go through. So the things I learned from that experience is what a derecho is. Do not take a back road through a storm, especially if it is poorly lit, has a bunch of trees, and people don't really know where you are, you know, because they would have looked for me on the main road, not on the back road that I take, because people didn't know I took the back road. Also, this was something that my aunt pointed out later on, and me now would have thought the same thing. Why the hell did the manager tell us to go out in that storm to go home? We should have stayed put. We should have stayed put. We would have been so much safer had we stayed there. This was during the time of smartphones. We could have tracked the storm on our phone, see what time it was going to be out of our area, and then left. If anything, we could have stayed there, clocked out, stayed in the mall for safety reasons, and then left when it was safe. Why the heck did she think you can't outdrive a storm? You can't outdrive a storm, and you can't outdrive like the sun going down. I've tried to do that too. That's a whole other story. But you can't outdrive nature. Storms move really fast. Also, they're really big. Storms are miles wide, okay? And they can be moving at 40 plus miles per hour. Sure, the speed limit that you're driving may be 45, but the storm is going to still catch you. You can't outrun a storm. Don't try. But yeah, the things that I learned what derecho is. I learned that sometimes you need to be smarter than the person who's put in charge, and you need to speak up. Don't be taking no back roads during the storm. Just don't do it. And I'm terrified of dying alone. I never wanted to know that. I know people say that I'm terrified of dying alone, but I actually was put in the position where I thought I was gonna die and I was alone, and I just didn't want to know that I was afraid of that. There are certain things I don't want to know about myself. I just didn't want to know that about myself. I really didn't, especially at such a young age. Why couldn't I find out later? It haunts me now. But that was the story of when I thought I was about to be taken out. I want to know in the comments below, have you ever thought that you were actually going to die? Like for real, for real. Not like,
girl, I thought I was dying, ha ha ha.
No, not like that. Like a situation where you could not see how you were going to make it out of a situation, and you legit thought this was it, and you are just panicking and crying, or you've accepted that I'm not going to make it through this. This is over. Have you been through a derecho? Have you been through a tornado? What happened when you went through a tornado? Like, how did you survive that? Oh my gosh, my fear is your entertainment. But until next time, thank you so much for watching this video of my fear, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.